Oh.
Never works.
Well, it can work. It just might not be the best thing for it to be done all by one person. Okay, there we go. All right, let's try that again. Too many things, too many things. So that was career suicide. This one I did change to make the movie. I had to change it around a little bit. Would you like me to read it out loud, or can you see
Sure,
it?
read it out loud.
Okay. But this is career suicide, Angelo screamed at Bobby. I don't care, Bobby said as he finished cleaning his Walter PPK. It's what I've always wanted to do. Angelo took a deep breath and tried to calm his nerves. Bobby was always the cool customer, and Angelo took his lead from his more experienced colleague. Bobby, Angelo pleaded, hitmen don't travel the Barbie doll convention circuit showing their collections. It's just not done. It is done, Angelo, Bobby replied. It's done, and I'm gonna do it. Again, that was a minute. Because I had no time to edit, it's a little different. It's not quite as finished as the movie version it was. I had a lot more time to do the movie version. But this idea of getting that inspiration immediately, very quickly, and getting it done allows that, again, that creative fire that we were talking about to really bubble up. And that's what we're going to do now. Any questions so far?
I'm wondering why, like if you did a 1 minute piece, why you couldn't go back and revisit it at another time to really perfect it or expand upon it.
Are you asking for my reasoning or just in general?
Yeah, it sounded like you don't do that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. It was just not the parameter of that particular project.
Okay.
Of course, absolutely. If you want to go back and revisit it and edit it and really figure out for yourself what you want to tweak, sure. For me personally, what I was trying to do with this project was to figure out a way of really making it so that I jumped into the storytelling immediately without giving myself any time to think or plan. I had a minute. And I didn't really want to, again, that idea of the inner critic or the editor, as I call it, coming in and going, you should be doing this differently, you should be saying something else. I didn't want that to be part of my process. So I decided that no matter what I did, other than going back and putting, I forgot to put a closing quotation or something, I wasn't going to try and mess with the process for that year that I did the project. Other people might decide to do something different, but for me, I just didn't want that editor, that critic, to be rearing her ugly head and telling me what I should be doing differently. So somebody else could absolutely do something different. Yeah?
Did you ever, after the year was over, did you make a collection of all your...
Absolutely. If you go to izoldatwriter.com, there is a link to 60-Second Stories Project, and all of them are on there. What ended up happening is I ended up getting quite a huge Facebook following, and I had people suggesting prompt words. So people, instead of me choosing a prompt word, and I'll show you how I did it in a second, instead of me choosing it, people would give me prompt words. And in fact, suicide, I think, was one of the ones that was suggested to me. And then people started suggesting multiple prompt words. So I would get things like apple and astronaut. And then I'd have to write a story involving and incorporating apple and astronaut in 1 minute. Same kind of thing. But again, two seemingly disparate words can give you a real story idea if you allow that inner fire to kind of come out without worrying at all about whether or not you have to edit, change, or modify a thing.
Did you post them on Facebook?
Every day for a year. And that's one of the reasons it got such a following. And I've noticed something about Facebook, and I love Facebook for this. First of all, if you and I are friends on Facebook, I am ubiquitous. I am all over Facebook. I post all the time. One of the things that happens if you post, this is what I've found for myself, if I post about something long enough, it develops a following. If you're writing and you want people to take note of your writing, get on Facebook or social media and post what you're doing. People become interested. They want to know more, and that's what happened with this writing project. Is people started wanting to know what the next story is going to be, and so that ended up happening a lot. And I still do. I do a couple of things that I write every single day, and I have quite a following of people who read those write-ups every single day on Facebook. So I highly recommend it, if for no other reason than to build your community, because it's a fun way of doing it. Okay. Any questions on this stuff? so far?
Did you ever try plotting this way? You know, just quickly, 1 minute for each, you know, chapter, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just- how does that work for you?
How it worked for me, the book that I'm finishing up right now, what ended up happening is the plot came in a day, and the chapters came about 4 minutes worth. It was, in part because it's a sequel, but in part because, and it's the second in a triple, but it was very quick because once it starts, and I don't know if the rest of you writers have this thing happen, once the plot line starts going a certain way, once the train is going, boy, is it hard to derail that train. I knew what was going to happen within the first few minutes of finishing book 1. Holy crap, now I know what's going to happen. Guess I better do it that way. And that's kind of what ends up happening with this flash fiction, is your brain goes in a certain direction, and it may not be the perfect direction, but that's why they do revisions, right? This is not for the first time you're writing your draft. The first time you're writing your draft, you put it down on paper or on the keyboard or whatever. That, for me, is the way the process works, because as soon as I start questioning what I've done or am I doing it right, everything derails and comes to a stop. And I don't want that. I want to have the permission to just go. And that's how I write best, for me. Might be better for you all to do it a different way, but that idea of getting in there and getting it done quickly really works. Questions? All right. So, this idea of how flash fiction accesses and activates that creative spark. There's no time to plan. If you've got a minute to write a whole entire story, there is no time to plan. You better have access to that part of you. One of the ways I do it is I always write to music. Always, always, always have some kind of music on, preferably music that I like. Sometimes it's music that's thematically appropriate to what I'm writing, but it doesn't have to be. The way I talk about it with my singing students, I teach singing and music also. The way I talk about it with my singing students, when I ask them to physicalize notes, for example, I'll ask them to do something while they're singing something that they find really difficult. I'll ask them to actually do this with their fingers. The reason I ask them to do this with their fingers while they're singing a particularly difficult passage is it gets them out of their own way. Their brain is busy doing this with their fingers, and it doesn't have time to be afraid of hitting the high note. That's what works. So I highly recommend do something that'll get you out of your own way, and you'll be golden. It's immediate. Certainly it's written work, so that means whatever you put down, you can then modify and edit as much as you want when you're done. But don't do it all yourself, at least not right now. There's a website called oneword.com. It's fabulous. It's what I used as my writing prompt for a lot of this 60-second story project. Go to it, you click begin. It gives you a word and a space to write and a 60-second timer. And then you write about that word for 60 seconds. Now you can write about the word, or you can do what I did. I wrote a story. And then the timer goes, and then you stop. And what I did for my project is I allowed myself to finish the sentence. And then everything else sprung up from that. So whatever sentence I was on, boy, it better be something I could finish on, right? Because I had to be done within that 1 minute. Can you do it for longer? Absolutely, and I highly encourage you to work for yourself, whatever works for yourself. But that idea of going quickly, oneword.com allows you to access it easily and quickly and immediately.
Can you adjust that timer on that?
Not on the website. Not on the website.
Now, did you always end up with a story, or did sometimes you end up with something completely different?
And then he said,
Fiction?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I always ended up with a story. That's all I wanted to do was fiction.
Yeah.
I tried one time to do I'm going to do an addition to yesterday's story today and then tomorrow. I tried for a few days, didn't work. Didn't work for me. I couldn't get back into it because that requires more planning. And I didn't want to plan for this. I wanted to just do it. Okay.
Does it stop after the one word and the buzz so that you can keep writing if you wanted to?
Mm-hmm. You can keep writing. It's just the 1 minute is the one thing that they want you to do. It's a way of, again, accessing that creative fire real quickly. I wish I'd thought of this website. I think it's awesome, but I'm glad it's out there.
Doesn't that presuppose that you type at a certain speed?
Yes, I happen to have over 100 words a minute, so I was very lucky, but if you don't, you don't. Some people speak the words. You don't have to actually type it into the website, by the way. It's fun, because then you post it if you want to on the One Word website, and it's there for anybody who's participating to read. But you can do it for yourself and just have the prompt word and the 1 minute timer. You know, some people use it as a way of getting their brain jump-started. You don't have to do it specifically the way they say it all. Play with it, you know, figure out what works for you. I'm all about that. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, modify it to your heart's content. You can't modify the website, but you can get another timer. You can do 5 minutes. And I'm going to show you a timer on the iPad in a second that will allow you to do that.
How many words do you type a minute?
About 112, 113 words a minute, something like
See, I
that.
do 14, so.
Yeah, I highly recommend Barron's book for typing. That's what helped me.
That's my typing finger, that's my shift key finger.
I knew a woman who could type one-handed about 75 words a minute. I have never seen the like, but she never used her left hand, just her right, about 75 words a minute. And I was hiring her to be a writer. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, Patty, I don't think you can do it. She's like, time me. Okay. And I said, type this. She'd never seen it before, and she typed about 75 words in the 1 minute I timed her. I was blown. I was like, okay, you're hired. I have
I
no
bet it
problem.
was flawless, because you just.
No mistakes, yeah, it was great. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a one-word challenge. I'm gonna ask you, this is the first of our 4 challenges. I'm going to ask you to take 60 seconds, and I'm gonna set it up on here. Anybody here use iPhones or iPads? You have a timer called Clock on your phone or iPad. If you don't have an iPhone or iPad, or you have a Droid or anything like that, you have timers on that too. This is called Clock, and you just click Clock and you hit click Clock, I like that. And you go to Timer, and then you tell it what you want. You can do hours, minutes, whatever you want. We're gonna do a minute. I'm gonna give you a prompt word, and I'm gonna ask you to write incorporating